The emergency meeting of Earth's Security Council stretched into its sixth hour. Military leaders from every major nation huddled around the central display, showing the alien vessels still in high orbit. Occasional flashes of light indicated smaller craft departing from the mothership. They're establishing observation posts throughout the system, General Santos explained, gesturing to trajectory projections. Mars' orbit, Jupiter's moons, even the Kuiper Belt. They're creating a surveillance network. Dr. Chen rubbed her tired eyes. The past 72 hours have been the most consequential in human history, and she'd slept for perhaps 6 of them. They never expected us to say no. Their entire diplomatic approach assumes immediate compliance. So what happens now? Asked President Okafor. We've rejected their treaty. Will they simply leave? The room fell silent. Everyone had seen the size of the alien vessel when it dropped its disguising field, over 5 kilometers long, bristling with technology beyond human comprehension. I don't believe they will, sir, Chen replied. Based on my analysis of their diplomatic language and the hidden treaty clauses, the Galactic Council has never encountered resistance. They don't have a protocol for handling rejection, which makes them unpredictable, Santos added grimly. The neural science team from Mumbai joined the conference via secure link. Dr. Patel's hologram appeared above the table, her expression serious. We've completed preliminary analysis of the brainwave patterns recorded during negotiations, she reported. Every human in the room showed subtle neurological interference. The translator devices were broadcasting at frequencies that enhanced suggestibility. President Okafor leaned forward. Are you saying they were attempting mind control? Not exactly, Patel clarified. More like nudging our thoughts toward acceptance. The effect would be mild for most humans, just enough to make the treaty seem reasonable despite any reservations. Yet it failed, Chen observed. Yes, and that's the fascinating part. Patel continued, excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. Human brains contain unique neural architectures in our prefrontal cortex. Something about our evolutionary path created natural resistance to these influence attempts. Across the solar system, in the Galactic Council vessel, Ambassador Zixel faced his own emergency meeting. The ship's commander, science director, and compliance officer all stared at him, with expressions ranging from disbelief to accusation. Explain again how primitives detected our compliance field, demanded Commander Vrex, her scaled skin flushing with anger. They didn't detect it, Zixel insisted. They just weren't affected as expected. Their cognitive structures appear resistant. The science director's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of intense calculation. Impossible. The compliance field has been calibrated for every known sentient neurotype. Perhaps they aren't what we thought, suggested the compliance officer quietly. The commander's attention snapped to the smaller alien. Explain. Initial scans classified humans as standard carbon-based omnivores with limited psionic potential, but their resistance suggests something different. We've only encountered similar resistance in species with highly developed consciousness shields, which humans don't possess, Zixel countered. Not artificially, the officer agreed. But what if it's natural? What if their entire species evolved with inherent psionic defenses? Silence fell over the alien command center. The implications were staggering. A species naturally immune to control measures represented everything the Council had feared finding for millennia. Commander Vrex finally broke the silence. Notify Central Command. Upgrade human threat assessment to Class 3. Deploy deep surveillance network. No further direct contact without reinforcements. As the orders went out, Zixel stared at the blue planet rotating peacefully below. For the first time in his 2-century career, the veteran diplomat felt something unfamiliar, genuine fear of what they might have discovered. Dr. Patel's laboratory hummed with activity as technicians calibrated the neural shielding prototype. Colonel Harper sat patiently in the testing chair, electrodes attached to his temples while holographic displays monitored his brain activity. The device creates a counter-frequency that should neutralize their influence attempts, Patel explained, making final adjustments. Based on what we reverse engineered from their technology, it should render their compliance field completely ineffective. Harper nodded, his military bearing unwavering despite being surrounded by experimental technology. And the secondary function, the one you weren't planning to mention to our visitors. Patel smiled slightly. If my calculations are correct, the device won't just block their influence, it will reflect it. Whatever they attempt to make you feel or think will bounce back to them. Psychological mirror, Harper mused. I like it. 2 days later, the 5th alien delegation arrived. Unlike previous representatives, Thorlak of the Compliance Division made no pretense of warmth. The serpentine alien scaled body remained perfectly still as it addressed the human delegation in the UN's specially constructed meeting chamber. The Council has reviewed your concerns regarding the Standard Integration Treaty. Thorlak began, voice modulator creating perfect English. We are prepared to offer certain accommodations. Harper, now leading the human security team, touched the small device behind his ear discreetly. The sensation was immediate. A subtle pressure against his thoughts, like someone gently pushing against a door. The alien's translation device emitted a barely perceptible hum as it broadcast not just words but suggestive impulses. These accommodations are quite generous. Thorlak continued, pupils dilating slightly as the compliance field intensified. You would be wise to accept immediately. Harper felt the pressure increase, then vanish as his neural shield activated fully. Across the table, he noticed something remarkable. Thorlak blinked rapidly, scales shifting color briefly as the reflected field hit its originator. We appreciate your offer, Dr. Chen replied smoothly, but we'll need time to review the details thoroughly. Thorlak's composure cracked momentarily. This is unusual. Most species understand the benefits immediately. We're an unusual species, Chen replied with a diplomatic smile. That night, while the alien delegation rested in their quarters, Harper led a covered team through the facility's service corridors. Using advanced scanning technology, they detected energy signatures emanating from supposedly decorative items the aliens had placed throughout the human living areas. Psionic amplifiers, the tech specialist whispered, examining her readings. They're broadcasting compliance signals even when the aliens aren't present. Collect one of each type, Harper ordered. Make sure they don't notice anything missing. Back at Patel's laboratory, the seized devices yielded breakthrough after breakthrough. Each contained components that operated on principles beyond current human technology, but not beyond human understanding. The quantum entanglement in these is fascinating, Patel explained to the assembled scientists. They link directly to the user's neural patterns, amplifying natural telepathic abilities. Can we adapt it for human use? Asked the research director. Patel hesitated. Theoretically, yes, but we need a test subject with exceptional mental discipline and natural sensitivity. That's how Aisha Mehta, former meditation instructor and current military intelligence analyst, found herself sitting cross-legged in the Himalayan research facility, the modified alien device carefully integrated into a simple headband. Focus on your breathing, Patel instructed through the observation room microphone. We're activating at minimum power. Mehta nodded, closed her eyes, and centered herself as she had thousands of times before. The device activated with a soft hum. 1 minute passed, 2. Then Mehta's eyes flew open, filled with wonder and shock. I can feel them, she whispered. Not just in this room, everywhere. Billions of minds, like stars in the night sky. And not just human minds. I can sense the aliens in orbit, their thoughts alien but still comprehensible. In the observation room, Patel and her team stared in stunned silence at the readings. The device wasn't just working. It was working better with human neural patterns than with its original alien design. On the Council homeworld, Senior Administrator Vorlex received the urgent transmission, his bony fingers trembling as he decoded the message from Earth observation teams. URGNT, Humans Adapting Compliance Technology, Capabilities Expanding Exponentially. Recommend immediate containment protocols. The Nightingale hung motionless in the void beyond Pluto's orbit, its experimental hull absorbing rather than reflecting light. Inside the bridge, the atmosphere was tense as the final launch preparations completed. Captain Sarah Chen reviewed the mission parameters one last time. Once we activate Dr. Wei's dimensional slip drive, we'll be completely blind until emergence. No communications, no sensors. How long? Asked Navigator Rodriguez, fingers hovering over her console. Theoretical transit time is 17 minutes, replied Wei from the engineering station. The physicist's voice was calm, but Chen noticed his hands trembling slightly. Though time becomes somewhat relative when slipping between dimensional boundaries. Chen nodded and opened the ship-wide channel. All personnel, this is the captain. We are about to attempt humanity's first interstellar journey. If successful, we'll have bypassed the Council blockade without detection. If unsuccessful, she paused. Well, theoretical physics is always an adventure. A few nervous laughs echoed through the comms. Chen appreciated the crew's spirit. Dimension slip drive activating in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The universe outside the viewports seemed to fold inward, colors stretching and compressing in ways human eyes were never meant to process. Several crew members averted their gaze, fighting sudden nausea. Dimensional boundary breach in progress, Wei announced, his voice now steady as he monitored the experimental drive. Transit pathway stable. For exactly 17 minutes and 8 seconds, the Nightingale existed in a state that defied conventional physics. Then, with a silent flash that briefly illuminated the bridge in impossible colors, they emerge. Position. Chen demanded immediately. Rodriguez stared at her instruments in disbelief. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. Alpha Centauri. 4.37 light-years from Earth. Cheers erupted across the ship. Humanity had achieved interstellar travel. But the celebration was short-lived. As sensors came fully online, Strategic Officer Takahashi called out, "Captain, I'm detecting artificial structures on the third planet, and resource extraction operations on the fourth." Council presence? Chen asked, suddenly alert. Negative. These structures don't match any Council configurations in our database, and they appear abandoned. Dr. Wei joined them at the main sensor display, his expression thoughtful. The Council provided us with star charts indicating this entire system was uninhabitable. Yet here we find not only habitable worlds, but evidence of previous occupation. They lied to us, Chen murmured. Question is, what else are they hiding? The Nightingale spent 3 days conducting detailed surveys of the Alpha Centauri system. They discovered abandoned mining facilities, automated processing plants still functioning after apparent centuries of neglect, and most surprisingly, vast stockpiles of refined rare earth elements and exotic materials. It's like finding a fully stocked warehouse with nobody home, Takahashi remarked as they inventoried the fourth planet's resources. On the final day, they made their most significant discovery, a partially intact data core from whatever civilization had previously occupied the system. Wei and his team worked tirelessly to access the alien database. "I got something," Wei announced finally, his eyes wide as information scrolled across his screen. This wasn't a Council operation. This system belonged to someone called the Anteri Federation, a multi-species alliance that apparently existed before the Council. According to this data, they controlled hundreds of star systems. What happened to them? Chen asked. Wei's expression darkened. The data suggests they were absorbed by the Council. Those who agreed to Council terms were integrated. Those who resisted were erased from history, Chen finished. As the Nightingale prepared to return to Earth with its revolutionary discoveries, Chen recorded her captain's log. "We came seeking a path beyond our solar system. We found evidence that the galaxy is filled with resources, habitable worlds, and buried histories the Council never wanted us to discover. The cage they built around us isn't just physical, it's informational. And now we have the key to both. On Earth, Admiral Oko received the Nightingale's encrypted transmission with growing excitement. Operation Starbridge was already underway. 17 more ships with Wise dimensional slip drive were being prepared for immediate launch. The Council's blockade was about to become irrelevant. Captain Marcus Okafor crouched behind the ridge, observing the Talox settlement through specialized binoculars. The spiraling structures gleamed in the binary star's light, revealing an architectural sophistication that belied their pre-spaceflight classification. "Their technology appears to be early industrial era," whispered Dr. Eliza Sato, the team's cynoanthropologist. "But their resource utilization is remarkably efficient." The survey team had spent 3 days observing from a distance, following Earth's first contact protocol meticulously. Unlike the Council's approach of immediate technological dominance, humans had developed a more measured methodology. "Time to introduce ourselves," Okafor decided, lowering his binoculars. "Dr. Sato, you'll take point on linguistic interface. Rodriguez, keep the translator matrix adaptive. I want real-time learning, not just broadcasting our words at them." The team descended carefully into the valley, carrying only minimal equipment and no visible weapons. As they approached the settlement's outer boundary, sensors detected movement. Several Talox emerged from the spiral structures, their segmented bodies moving with unexpected grace despite their insectoid appearance. "Peaceful greetings," Sato called out in the preliminary linguistic pattern they developed from observation. She held her hands open, palms forward in the universal gesture of non-aggression. The lead Talox, distinguished by elaborate markings along its carapace, responded with a complex series of clicks and whistles. Rodriguez's translator worked furiously, adapting in real time to the alien syntax. "They're asking if we come from the stars," he translated after a moment. "But there's something else. They're asking if we're like the others who take." Okafor exchanged glances with Sato. "Tell them we come from the stars, but we seek exchange, not taking." The response triggered visible reaction among the Talox, their antennae quivering in what appeared to be surprise or skepticism. Over the next 3 days, a remarkable relationship developed. The Talox, it turned out, had encountered Council resource scouts decades earlier, but had been deemed pre-integration ready and placed on a monitoring schedule. The Council had taken mineral samples, but otherwise left minimal technological footprint, a strategy designed to keep the species ignorant of the wider galaxy until they could be properly compliant. In the Talox community gathering space, High Speaker Sith's translator rendered the alien leader's clicking speech into English. "Your approach puzzles us. The previous star travelers observed from hiding, took samples secretly, left monitoring devices. You walk openly into our settlement and offer knowledge freely." Okafor nodded. "Our species believes in mutual respect and fair exchange. Your world contains resources valuable to spacefaring civilizations, but they belong to you, not us. What would you exchange for these resources?" Sithik inquired. Sato displayed a holographic demonstration of extraction technology far more advanced than what the Council would typically offer emerging species. "We can help you harvest these elements yourselves, with minimal environmental impact. We'll trade fairly for what you extract, and you'll retain full sovereignty over your world." The Talox leaders conferred briefly, their clicking language too rapid for the translators to process. Finally, Sith turned back to the humans. The others who came before, they spoke of integration, of joining something called a council. They'd promised to return when we were ready. Their definition of ready seemed to involve unquestioning acceptance. "We don't seek to integrate you," Okafor explained. "We seek to trade with you as equals." 3 weeks later, when the Council resource acquisition vessel entered orbit around the Talox homeworld, they were stunned to discover a human trading post already established. More shocking still, the Talox were already extracting lanthanide elements using technology that shouldn't have been available to them for centuries. The Council delegation's leader, Resource Administrator Velcor, could barely contain his outrage as he confronted High Speaker Sithik. This violates all Council protocols for developing species who authorize this technology transfer. Sith's translator rendered his response with perfect clarity. We did. It is our world, our resources. The humans asked permission. You never did. As Velcor's delegation returned to orbit in disarray, their communication specialist transmitted an urgent message to Council headquarters. Human interference spreading. Resource acquisition strategy compromised. Request immediate policy revision. Zeth-Nar stalked through the crowded marketplace on Benari Prime, his Council enforcement insignia clearing a path through the diverse aliens. The Benari trading hub had always been a troublesome spot for cultural compliance. Too many species intersecting, too much unsanctioned exchange. But recent reports were alarming. He stopped at a small shop tucked between larger establishments, its entrance partially concealed by hanging fabrics. The shopkeeper, a six-limbed Kasseri, froze upon seeing his insignia. Cultural Contraband Division, Zeth-Nar announced coldly. We've traced illegal Earth content to this location. The shopkeeper's skin rippled with anxiety patterns. I don't know what you... Zeth-Nar slammed a detection device onto the counter. It immediately began pulsing with light, indicating nearby data crystals containing unauthorized content. Storage room. Now. In the back room, Zeth-Nar discovered dozens of small crystalline data storage units, each containing terabytes of human cultural products. He activated one at random, and a holographic display sprang to life. Humans moving rhythmically to complex sound patterns. Dance, the shopkeeper offered timidly. They call it ballet. Another crystal contained thousands of text files labeled poetry, novels, and philosophy. A third held visual art spanning centuries of human development. But the most disturbing discovery was the customer manifest. Over 3,000 individuals from 27 species had purchased Earth packages from this shop alone in the past month. This content isn't approved for interspecies consumption. Zeth-Nar hissed. Human expression is chaotic, contradictory, dangerous to cultural stability. The shopkeeper's voice strengthened unexpectedly. Have you experienced any yourself? Of course not. I'm compliance. Then you don't understand why it's spreading so rapidly. The Kasseri activated another crystal. This human concept called jazz. It embraces improvisation and individual expression within collective creation. Nothing like it exists in Council-approved arts. Zeth-Nar confiscated everything, of course, but as his ship departed Benari Prime, he found himself slipping one tiny crystal into his personal effects, curiosity overcoming training. Meanwhile, on Mars Colony, Jamal Washington stood before the imposing quantum servers housing humanity's greatest technological achievement, Galactopedia. The vast knowledge repository grew exponentially as both humans and non-Council species contributed information that had been suppressed for millennia. The access statistics are beyond our projections, Washington explained to the United Earth delegation touring the facility. We're registering over 8 million unique users from 412 species. Many are accessing through proxy channels to avoid Council detection. What content sees the highest engagement? Asked Ambassador Chen. Washington smiled. Surprisingly, it's not technology or sciences, though those are popular. It's Earth's historical record of resistance movements, revolutions, and social change. Species that have lived under Council homogenization for thousands of years are discovering concepts like civil disobedience and peaceful resistance for the first time. A technician approached with an urgent notification. Sir, we're detecting an attempted Council data intrusion. They're trying to corrupt the central index. Washington nodded calmly. Activate protocol democracy. Distribute the entire database across all trusted nodes. Across the galaxy, thousands of secret Galactopedia terminals receive the full knowledge base, creating a decentralized network that the Council couldn't possibly eradicate without destroying their own communication infrastructure. On the Council capital world, Cultural Stability Director Masvoth reviewed the latest reports with growing dread. Human cultural products have been detected on over 300 worlds. She informed the emergency session. Most concerning is the pattern of spread. Council citizens are voluntarily sharing this content, despite awareness of prohibition. How do we counter this? Demanded a senior council member. Standard suppression tactics are proving ineffective, Masvoth admitted. When we destroy human cultural artifacts, copies appear in greater numbers. When we penalize distributors, they become martyrs who inspire others. She paused, clearly uncomfortable with her conclusion. It appears that human cultural expression contains elements that fulfill needs we have systematically eliminated from council-approved content. The more we attempt to suppress it, the more desirable it becomes. In his private quarters that evening, Zeth-Nar finally surrendered to curiosity. He activated the stolen crystal, and the strange sounds of human jazz filled his room. He intended to listen for just a moment, to understand the threat. He remained there until morning, changed forever. General Doxvril stood rigidly before the Council military command, his scaled skin tightening with tension as he finalized the assault plan. 12 Night Shadow-class destroyers will breach the solar system using our most advanced cloaking technology, he explained, manipulating the holographic display to show invasion vectors. The humans' primitive detection systems cannot possibly track our approach. Admiral Kelther, a veteran of countless enforcement actions, studied the targeting projections. The Mars shipyards are their primary manufacturing center for these dimensional slip drives. If we destroy their production capability, their expansion ends. Only Commander Zexlar seemed hesitant. Our intelligence on human defensive capabilities is incomplete. Their technological adaptation rate exceeds our models. Doxvril dismissed the concern with a flick of his primary hand. They've had space technology for less than a century. We've perfected ours over millennia. The operation launched within the day. 12 of the Council's most advanced warships, each carrying enough firepower to level a small continent, slipped into dimensional transit toward the Sol system. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez was midway through her shift at Lunar Defense Station Artemis when the quantum-entangled sensor grid registered the first anomalies. "Contact," she announced, fingers dancing across her console. "Multiple dimensional rupture signatures at the system edge. Configuration unknown, but energy patterns suggest large vessels." Station Commander Jimenez leaned over her station. "Council ships. Likely. 12 signatures, moving in stealth configuration. Their cloaking is good. Traditional sensors show nothing." Jimenez opened a secure channel to Earth Defense Command. "Admiral Oko, we have visitors. Stealth approach, heading toward Mars. Looks like the diplomatic approach is officially over." Admiral Helena Oko's voice was calm as she responded from Earth. "Tracking confirmed. Deploy Faraday countermeasures, defensive protocol only. Let's show them we're not as helpless as they think." Throughout the solar system, automated defense platforms activated silently. Unlike conventional weapons, they'd broadcast no energy signatures until triggered. The technology, a hybrid of adapted council science and human innovation, remained invisible to standard detection methods. Aboard the council flagship Inevitable Dominance, Tactical Officer Vexcor reported with satisfaction. "We've reached optimal firing position. No indication of detection. Mars shipyards targeted." General Doxvril allowed himself a rare moment of anticipation. "Commence firing sequence." The moment the Council vessels powered up their primary weapons systems, the trap sprang. Hundreds of defense platforms simultaneously activated, bathing the alien ships in precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses. The seemingly primitive countermeasure had a devastating effect on the Council's sophisticated systems. The pulses exploited a fundamental vulnerability in their quantum processing architecture. "Systems failing," Vexcor shouted as control panels went dark throughout the flagship. "Weapons offline. Engines offline." Similar chaos erupted across all 12 vessels. 9 ships lost power completely, left drifting and helpless in space. 3 managed emergency dimensional jumps but suffered critical damage in the process. Admiral Oko watched the sensor displays from her command center on Earth, her expression neutral as the Council fleet disintegrated before their defenses. "Rescue teams deploy to all disabled vessels," she ordered. "Medical support, atmosphere stabilization, full humanitarian protocol." Her executive officer looked surprised. "We're helping them. We're showing them who we are," Oko replied. "Prepare to broadcast on all frequencies in Council standard language to disabled Council vessels. This is Admiral Helena Okoa of Earth Defense Command. We are dispatching humanitarian aid. Your crew will be treated according to our Geneva Conventions and return to your territory unharmed when medical stabilization is complete." On the Council homeworld, the military command watched in stunned silence as the operation collapsed into disaster. The humans had not only detected their supposedly undetectable ships, but had disabled them without destroying them, demonstrating both technological superiority and restraint. Most disturbing of all, they were now rescuing their attackers. "I don't understand," General Doxfrill admitted, watching footage of human medical ships approaching their disabled vessels. "We would never show such weakness to an enemy." Admiral Kelther's expression had transformed from confidence to contemplation. "Perhaps that's why they're defeating us at every turn. They don't see strength and weakness the way we do." The Grand Council chamber hadn't seen such disorder in 10,000 years. Representatives from hundreds of species shouted over one another as the emergency session devolved into chaos. Security drones hovered nervously, their programming inadequate for the unprecedented situation. At the center of the storm stood Ambassador Larilia of the Ashari, her 4 arms raised for attention. The Ashari were one of the Council's founding species, their voice carrying ancestral weight. When she finally spoke, her words cut through the tumult. "I have reviewed the unedited reports from the Sol system," she announced, her harmonics conveying authority. "Our military vessels attacked a sovereign species without provocation. When disabled, our crews expected execution. Instead, they received medical care." Senior Administrator Trenvok, Vorlex's temporary replacement, attempted to regain control. "The humans represent an existential threat to Council stability. Their rejection of our treaties was entirely justified." Larilia interrupted, triggering another wave of gasps. "I have accessed the Galactopedia archives. The humans discovered our hidden compliance technologies, our resource appropriation clauses, our information control protocols, all the mechanisms we've used to maintain what we call peace." On 100 worlds throughout Council space, citizens gathered around public information terminals, watching the unprecedented session broadcast live. Another human innovation rapidly spreading through the galaxy. For the first time in recorded history, ordinary beings witnessed the actual deliberations of their government, rather than receiving sanitized summaries. "We face a choice," Larilia continued. "We can continue treating the humans as a threat because they refuse to be controlled, or we can acknowledge the fundamental flaws in our approach to galactic governance." From the Central World's delegation, Councillor Zeth Nar rose to speak, the same cultural compliance officer who had first discovered human cultural contraband. His transformation from enforcement to advocate had shocked the Council hierarchy. "I have experienced human culture firsthand," he admitted publicly. "Their art, their philosophy, their social systems, all embrace diversity rather than conformity. They perceive differences as strengths rather than threats to stability." The chamber erupted again as dozens of representatives signaled to speak. Some demanded immediate military mobilization against Earth. Others called for a complete reassessment of Council principles. The most radical voices suggested dissolving the Council entirely. When a coalition of 37 species formally announced their withdrawal from Council authority to form the Galactic Confederation, the millennia-old institution fractured visibly. Embassies were withdrawn, trade agreements suspended, military alliances dissolved. In a private chamber away from the chaos, Larilia met with a small group of reformist leaders, including the moderate Talaxian philosopher Nick Spawn. The Council cannot survive in its current form, Nixvan observed quietly. Too many secrets have been revealed, too many lies exposed. Then perhaps it shouldn't survive, Lorelia replied. Perhaps something better should take its place. When the emergency session reconvened the following day, Vorlex was formally removed from power by unanimous vote, the first such action in Council history. In his place, Nixvan was appointed interim administrator with a mandate for comprehensive reform. His first official act stunned even his supporters. I propose we formally apologize to Earth for our attempted military action, our economic sabotage, and our information warfare. Furthermore, I request that human representatives join us as advisors in restructuring galactic governance. The message transmitted to Earth contained something unprecedented in Council diplomatic history, an admission of wrongdoing. In Geneva's diplomatic center, Dr. Elaine Chen, now humanity's senior ambassador to galactic affairs, reviewed the message with cautious optimism. They're finally ready to talk as equals, she told her staff. Prepare a delegation, but this time, we'll be writing the terms. Across the stars, billions of beings watched and waited. The galaxy stood at a crossroads, and humanity had become the unexpected catalyst for transformation. The Unity Ring space station rotated majestically in high Earth orbit, its massive circular structure gleaming in the sunlight. Constructed through the collaborative efforts of 30 different species, the station embodied the new interstellar philosophy. Diverse components working together, while maintaining their unique identities. In the Grand Assembly Chamber, representatives from 200 species gathered for the historic signing of the Treaty of Sol. The circular room featured no elevated podiums or privileged positions, all delegates seated as equals around a perfectly round table. Dr. Elaine Chen stood alongside Nixvan and Lorelia, the three architects of the new galactic order. 5 years of intensive diplomacy, cultural exchange, and technological cooperation had transformed enemies into partners. Today marks not an ending but a beginning. Chen addressed the assembly, her voice transmitted to trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. The Treaty of Sol is unlike any previous galactic agreement. It contains what we've come to call the human clause, a principle that sovereignty is inviolable, that all agreements must be transparent, equitable, and subject to regular review. Nixvan spoke next, his voice resonating with philosophical clarity. For millennia, the Council maintained what we called peace through control. We believed diversity led to conflict, that centralized authority was necessary for stability. The humans showed us a different path, that true stability comes from respecting differences rather than suppressing them. Throughout the chamber, delegates from former Council worlds nodded in agreement. The past 5 years had seen remarkable transformations. Joint human-alien research teams had made breakthrough discoveries in medicine, energy production, and environmental restoration. Cultural exchange programs flourished as species rediscovered their suppressed heritage while embracing new influences. The most profound change, Lorelia observed, has been in how we perceive strength. The Council believed strength came from uniformity and compliance. Humanity showed us that true strength emerges from diversity and cooperation. As the delegates prepared to sign the treaty, a small commotion arose at the chamber entrance. An elderly alien entered slowly, leaning on a ceremonial staff. Former Senior Administrator Vorlex, now living in quiet exile. The chamber fell silent as Vorlex approached the central table. Protocol officers moved to intercept him, but Chen gestured them back. I requested his presence, she explained to the surprised assembly. Vorlex spoke, his once commanding voice now softened with age and reflection. I came to witness what I once feared. When humans rejected our treaty, I saw only threat and disorder. I failed to understand that your rejection wasn't of cooperation, but of subjugation. He turned to address the entire assembly. The humans could have destroyed us after our military failure. Instead, they offered partnership. I was wrong about them. Perhaps I was wrong about everything. Chen stepped forward, and, in a gesture that would be recorded in history texts for generations, offered her hand to the former administrator. After a moment's hesitation, he accepted it. "The past cannot be undone," she said, "but the future remains unwritten." With that symbolic reconciliation complete, the delegates took turns placing their biometric signatures on the Treaty of Sol. Each touched the document in their species' traditional manner. Some with hands, some with tentacles, some with specialized appendages, while speaking their name and homeworld. When the last signature was recorded, the assembled delegates rose as one. No speeches remained, no further ceremony. The era of dictated treaties had ended. The age of genuine partnership had begun. Throughout galactic diplomatic circles, a phrase entered the lexicon: pulling a human. To reject an unfair arrangement in favor of creating something better for all parties involved. And on distant worlds just beginning to look to the stars, new species would eventually learn the story of how humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or military might, but the simple, revolutionary power of saying no to injustice and yes to a better way forward.